All right, let's go ahead and get started.
Why?
That's a good point. Welcome to Bonehead. How are you all? You doing all right out there in TV land or iTunes land?
That's not a real place.
Yes, it is a real place. Shut up, Internet James. What? What are you laughing about? Oh, Haley finally laughed. I'm Joe Lewis, that's Chad Jennings, and over there is that guy that's dead to me.
Uncomfortable silence.
So you tried to give James some peanuts.
I know.
Why did James not eat the peanuts?
It's not because I'm allergic. It's because I don't take any food from Chad.
And why do they have only small bottles of Diet Mountain Dew in Alabama?
Dude, I don't know. It's really weirding me out. It's a 16-ounce bottle, but it's not like the old school 16-ounce
And why do you
bottle.
do it pinkies out?
Because I'm classy.
Now that you're faculty there in Kalamazoo, you've got to have your pinky out while you drink?
Your
I mean, I'm
tie's
not
crooked.
Cornell or nothing.
Oh, your tie is crooked.
Could you fix your tie for this
Oh,
We
episode?
noticed that you went ahead and waxed your eyebrows.
I didn't wax
For you
my
people who are
eyebrows.
just now tuning in, we're looking at James, and Chad asked him if he went ahead and did the whole Brazilian.
Should we start talking about the actual episode of what we're doing?
As soon as we get done talking about his runway and his nethers.
So James, what are we talking about today?
Well, speaking of zombies, we're talking about the films of one Robert J. Zombie.
Welcome to Bonehead. All right. Robert Person.
I didn't know if his real middle initial is J. I don't want people to start. I don't want to start rumors.
Hold on. Robert Alive Person was born January the 12th, 1965 in Haverhill, Massachusetts. He became Rob Zombie in 1979 at the Monroeville Mall,
I've got a question.
where he was bitten by a biker with a goatee, participating Chad in a pie fight. That day, Rob Zombie was created.
That was your joke.
I loved it. I don't give a shit if anybody laughs about it. I love it.
Good, because they're not gonna.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Where are you at in another world?
Was that as painful for you as it was me?
I'm in a better world.
No. Suck up the humidity.
A whole new world.
Because at first I thought he was actually telling us something biographical.
It is biographical. He really was born in 1912 in 1965 in Haverhill, Massachusetts.
Do
Okay.
you know, interesting fact, do you know what else is from Haverhill, Massachusetts?
What?
Nothing.
Well, no,
Nothing.
that's
Their
not true.
only
His younger
export has been
brother
Rob
is
Zombie.
his younger
Power
brother
Man 500.
is the lead singer of Power Man 500. So
That's true.
technically,
Okay, they have their primary
Was it Power
two
Man
exports.
5000? It's Power Man.
it depends on how big the Power Man is.
Yeah. If he had his coffee that morning.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and get started.
They're on the soundtrack to Titan AE.
No, wait. I mean, I guess first off we should talk about, because you two...
Why did we pick Rob Zombie?
Yeah, why did we pick Rob Zombie? Because you two are huge Rob Zombie fans. I appreciate his work, but I'm nowhere near as...
I don't know that I'd use the word well, no, I do like Rob Zombie a lot. Because James and I have said this many times, and I don't know if he still talks to me now that he's got his pinkies up with his weird-ass 16-ounce Mountain Dew jugs.
He doesn't talk to me either.
No, that's true. Well,
He never
did he
talked
talk
to
to you
me
before? You said it. Anyway, no, you just keep going. Babies first,
Mythos.
missos.
No, you let me know when you get on to the new material.
So anyway, James and I talked about this. I don't care if you love him. I don't care if you hate him. I don't care if you hate House of a Thousand Corpses or you love it. I don't care if you think Devil's Rejects is meh, ripoff, or one of the best movies made in the 2000s. I don't care if you love or hate his Halloween remake. But when you watch a Rob Zombie film, you say, yep, that was a Rob Zombie film. The man has a distinct vision in a world of directors who have no vision.
I agree.
Yeah, it is not bland.
Or they at
Even
least
if you
look
talk
like one another.
even if you talk about the one that nobody talks about, and I of course refer to the Haunted World of El Super Visto.
I've got it on here.
I mean, there's nothing else like it. Visually,
No.
I mean, it kind of runs Ren and Stimpy visually, but it's not Ren and Stimpy. It's surreal. It's off the wall. It's Nazis. It's all over the place, and it's just a surreal adult cartoon.
Yeah,
that has a great voice cast.
Which we'll get into that one. We'll get into that one in a minute. But
so, how did you all discover Rob Zombie? Because I, of course, discovered him from music.
I discovered him through music as well. Through to begin with, White Zombie.
White Zombie, and his music was played on a lot of what? Movies.
Movies, yes. And MTV.
And MTV.
Well, and that's the other thing. Speaking about his music, you can already tell he had a real interest in film, or he had consumed copious amounts of film because he used so many illusions in his music.
And it's not
everything from.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, James. I mean, a lot of. For example, which song has the line from Coffee? This is the end of your rotten life, you toad. That's from Coffee.
And City of the Dead.
Yeah.
Is in Dracula, right?
Yeah.
But even some of the lyrics, more human than human.
Right.
I am the Nexus One. I want more life because I'm not done as Blade Runner. I mean, all over the place, he was throwing out movie illusions. He was sampling movies. He was all that stuff. So the fact that he was interested in film is pretty apparent from even the music. So yeah, no, I discovered him through music as well, and I liked it because he made tons of movie references, some of which I didn't get. I think we both discovered the Christopher Lee City of the Dead illusion when we were watching City of the Dead.
Yeah, absolutely, because we did that at our last Halloween.
Halloween. Oh, Joe just went really, really racist for his numbers.
No, Joe just went really, really re.
Yeah.
Hold on, wait. Or, Chad, let's not jump to racism. Joe could slowly be turning into Medea. Hallelujah!
That's a terrible Medea. Anyway, moving right along.
I'm sorry. I know yours was so much better.
Yeah, I know.
I just can't.
He wrote that shit down.
I laughed. I laughed later. I don't care if anybody else laughs. Anyway, from the turds I've had to... What'd you say?
No, you let us know they're turds.
Because we were talking about films. And he obviously, before we get into the films, I actually found a couple interviews with him, different times, where he talked about the films that really influenced him. And the ones that most people know, the ones that he talked about the most, are Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from 1931.
Yeah.
Is that Barrymore?
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Is that Barrymore?
No.
Oh, damn it.
Well, Drew.
The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
That is Drew Barrymore.
Freaks.
Yep.
Nosferatu. The Exorcist.
Yep.
The Shining.
Yep.
Night of the Living Dead. Frankenstein. And Dracula. What's really funny, though, is I found another interview where they ask him what he's more likely to have on, in the background when he's working. And in an interview with Rolling Stone, he actually says he has almost a borderline obsession with silent film because nobody does that anymore. And not the silent part of it, the visuals.
No, there's a lot. I think we've talked about this on the show. Didn't we talk about this a little bit with Bill Malone? That a lot of people will make an argument that sound, not music, but actual people talking, killed cinema.
Yeah, and
everything was established, all the rules, everything was established all in silent film.
So he actually brought up, he said if people wanted to watch silent films, here's the ones he recommends. Again, Nosferatu.
Right.
The Unknown.
Yeah.
Which he actually said he got to see in a theater in L.A. with an actual old man playing an organ throughout the entire thing.
They did that at the Kentucky about 15... Oh, it's been a long time. I was in college. It's been about maybe 19 years ago.
They used to do it about once a year.
Yeah.
It wasn't always a horror movie, but they wheel out the
Wurlitzer, yeah, absolutely.
and they would have a silent film showing. Sometimes it was a comedy. Sometimes it was because one year they did Buster Keaton.
Yep.
His other one though is West of Zanzibar, which he says is one of the most mind-blowing films of all time. I have never seen it.
I've never
I
seen
didn't
it
know
either.
about it. But he says it's one of the most sinister films he's ever seen because there was no Hays Code, there was no regulation of film, and he says it's the most sinister film he's ever seen, which now makes me really want to see it. Phantom of the Opera, and then he says his dream is to see London After Midnight, which was remade, but the original is lost, and it was lost because film was new, and it had Lon Chaney in it, which now we'd be like, well, obviously there's to be preserved, but they were like, well, people have seen it, why would we save this? And evidently it got destroyed.
Yeah, that's one. I mean, most of early Hollywood history is gone. I mean, they just destroyed films left to right because they didn't realize that there would be a market for that later on, like decades later.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are the 4 silent films that he recommends people check out. But I was really shocked because being a musician, you would think audio would be really important, but and it goes back to, you can see it in his films, like you were saying. Well, they are visually Rob Zombie films.
Yeah.
Well, no, and you can sort of see that with him being a musician because back then, it's the music that told the story a lot of those ways because
well, it
kept it going.
It kept it going. Well, and it the mood, the tone, it added to all the ambiance of it. It's weird because he went to New York, and went to school and kind of flunked out or left school. He ended up working as a messenger. He worked in Pee Wee's Playhouse.
Yep.
And then he started a band, and he got into directing by directing music videos.
Right.
Music videos for himself and others.
Right.
There's a few years ago he did a Woolite commercial. Have you guys ever seen it?
I've seen it. It's fantastic.
It is actually probably better than a couple of his movies.
Yeah, because you don't realize it's a Woolite commercial. You're just
like, this is a weird Rob Zombie film.
If you haven't seen it, look it up.
Yeah, Rob Zombie Woolite. Definitely check that out.
And he did episodes of CSI too, right?
He directed an episode of CSI that's probably the only episode of CSI that starts with a Nosferatu.
And it doesn't feel like a normal episode of CSI.
It does
Even
not.
when he's doing a scripted, this show has ran for centuries show, you're still, Malcolm McDowell's in it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sherry Moon's in it.
Yeah, and it's compelling. I don't know. He's just something about the way he does it. And like I said, the fact that he comes from an interest in old film and just anyway. Yeah, go ahead.
So for years he was going to write and direct The Crow, one of the Crow sequels.
It was actually The Crow 2037.
Yeah.
It's with the subtitle of A New Age of Gods and Monsters,
which goes back to his obsession with Universal monsters.
He wrote the script, and it began on Halloween night in 2010. It's a follow-up to the second one.
Salvation. No, Salvation's the third one.
Is it City of Angels?
City of Angels.
Crow, City of Angels. Yeah. And it's about a young boy and his mother being murdered by a satanic priest.
Yeah.
And true to the franchise, the boy rises from the dead and becomes a vengeful assassin.
Yeah.
But with that one, that was going to be his first. Movie. That was going to be his directorial debut. But then the studio got a hold of the script, and then they got because he wrote it with if I'm not mistaken, did he write it with the guy from? No, that's later on. Never mind. But no, the studio got a hold of it and they retooled it. Which, by the way, the Crow sequels are a long story,
and none of them are good.
That could be a whole episode of.
And none of them are good.
And then the constant reboot that's supposed to happen and it hasn't happened. Where Donnie Wahlberg or Mark Wahlberg at one point was going to be the Crow. But anyway, they got
so many cult franchises.
Yeah,
Highlander's the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but after that.
No, well, how he really ended up doing a movie was that he actually designed the attractions for Universal Horror Nights one year.
Yeah.
I don't know if you all got into this in your research. And they had a good relationship, and it's like, sure, we'll give you a low-budget horror film, then let him do a low-budget horror film. He shot that low-budget horror film on the back lot of Universal. If you're watching that low-budget horror film, that house is the house that's right there on the back lot. It's the same house out of Best Little Horror House in Texas.
No, is it?
Yes, it is. Same house. It's right there on the back lot. Let him do the whole movie. Nobody said jack to him. He was like, he had a great experience. put a rough cut together, showed it to the execs, and they almost had a heart attack. And they were not going to release it. It's called House of a Thousand Corpses. So
because this was a big deal when this movie was.
It was huge. You remember? It was huge.
Yeah, everybody's like, no, we're not releasing this. This is horrible. It'll scar people.
And it just blew it up to more than what it ever would have been if they'd have just dropped it on video.
Right.
Nobody would have said word. Nobody would have thought anything about it. So I don't know how much research either one of you did on this. That's actually something I didn't need to look up. I remember most of it. Do you guys have anything about it?
No, I can remember waiting for it to come out, thinking, "Oh, it's going to be." I mean, so again, it had to be an experience because they're that nervous about it.
Yeah, and I literally did the research on movies that he made that he was supposed to make. So because I knew you two had this ball. So
I didn't need to look this up. So what happened is Rob Zombie made it. I can't remember who the female head of Universal was at the time. I don't remember her. She's like, we can't release it. He actually doesn't have a lot of negative things to say because they could have just destroyed it but they let him take it on.
Yeah.
So they paid for your movie. We're not going to do anything with it. We think we can't release this, but go do what you want to with it. You know, he had the right attitude, right? They could have done him way worse. That's fine. So, took him a while, couldn't finish the movie because we're talking about a first cut. And for you folks who don't maybe understand a lot about movie making, filmmaking, a first cut is like you just wrote a short story and put it together and there it is before you edit it 1,500 times. It is not by all means, it didn't have the music, didn't have the credits, doesn't have all the special effects, yada, 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 yada. So that means that you have to do completion. A lot of times in post, there's a whole completion budget. There's all this stuff that's all that. Anyway, getting all that out of the way.
If you got money.
Yeah, that's where editing costs a lot of money too. Shooting's the most expensive, but the more time you spend in an editing suite, the more it costs. So they took it to, I want to think it was MGM. Was coming back out. Do you remember MGM at that time? They'd had the new Bond film and stuff, and MGM was going to release it. He was interviewed at the MTV Music Awards, and somebody said, or the movie awards, I don't remember which one, said, MGM's going to release your movie. He's like, yeah, Universal, said that they didn't, it would be unconscionable or something. And they said, MGM's going to do it. Yeah, they don't have a conscience. So they dropped him the next day. Look it up. I can't remember. I'm not doing the quote. Like they don't have any more. They said they had too many morals. I guess MGM doesn't have any morals.
Yeah.
Just a joke. Dropped him the next day. Lionsgate, which is not an American company, it's a Canadian company, ended up picking up the movie. And we could do a whole episode about going back to Robert Altman on Lionsgate. Yeah. We may do that later on.
Yeah,
that's for the truly weird, truly film freaks out there. Lionsgate finished it up, and during this time.
Wait, what, James?
What?
Huh?
So, I'm sorry, you were saying something.
I said truly outrageous.
So, over the 2 years, he added things, he rewrote stuff, he reshot things. The guy that plays Grandpa died.
Right?
Yeah. So, you couldn't go back and reshoot that. So, they finally finished it and it come out. And I remember being so excited to see it because, oh my God, it's the movie that they wouldn't release.
Yeah, it was like, I
saw it together.
Yes.
Right?
Because I was dying to see it because of that reason. I'm like, I've got to see this movie. It's been forbidden.
I loved it. Chad? Chad, you rewatched it. How is it 10 more than it was? Probably 12, 15 years later.
Okay, so...
When did it come out? 2003?
2003, I think.
Yeah. So 15 years
on Rotten
later.
Tomato, it's his lowest scored movie at 15%. But when I first saw it, I'm like, I've seen worse.
Yeah, especially for somebody's first movie.
Yeah, the only thing that I ever thought that might have been truly horrific was the credit, the opening credits to the movie.
Which is the best scene in the whole movie?
No, the actual credits.
Oh, okay.
Where you see like somebody's skin being removed off their face and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know if that was real or not, but there's some pretty horrific imagery in that, just at those title cards. But when I saw it, I'm just like, okay, it was violent.
It's not that violent.
It's not that violent. No. But I watched it this morning. I actually watched it in preparation for this show. I watched it this morning, and it's really uneven.
It makes no sense. You're absolutely right.
I mean, it just goes from one thing to another.
There's 13 plots throughout it.
Right.
He has actually said before it's a jumbled mess. Now looking back on it, that it's nothing but flaws and flaws and flaws. I give him more credit. I think it's a guy trying to make a 90-minute film.
Right.
He's probably never had to do that before.
Right, and he was having
with a
a
mind
lot,
full of imagery.
Right, and he was having to do with a lot of trying to get this movie done.
Yeah, with a mind full. Can you imagine his mind and how many images he had, and then trying to put that into a coherent tale?
Right.
And never doing that before.
Yeah, Neo, what is it?
What?
But the other
Which pill am I supposed
to
to take? The blue one or the red one?
I was getting glare. I was actually having trouble, so I put on my shades. It helped. Stop complaining. What I was going to say, though, is you take too many pills. Been meaning to talk to you about that.
I'm sorry. Would you say Orpheus?
Did you say Orpheus or Morpheus?
I said Orpheus because I thought it was funnier, but neither one's funny.
Go ahead.
Work on it. Anyway, what I was going to say is, one thing about that is the cast. Like, I honestly think the scene with Sid Haig where he said, "Put your hands up," and what Sid Haig did, improvised there. I don't think that movie, and one of the things that he said in an article that came out is, and I think he's stayed true to this, is that he did an article, and I don't remember what it was for, but it was called What Happened to the Faces.
Yes, absolutely.
And he talked a lot in the article. It was kind of his editorial piece about his film, saying that we don't cast people that are old. We don't cast, the studios, right. When he was working for them, we need somebody that looks like this. We need to be able to sex sells and all that stuff. And he said, and he used Sid Haig as an example. He said Sid Haig's character or face is part of a character.
Absolutely.
And he talked about that with, he mentioned Danny Trejo. He mentioned, so many of these people, if you try to cast perfection, you miss out on the fact that the film is made better by these people and these older, experienced actors and all that stuff that goes into that. And Sid Haig improving, flipping off the cameras and stuff like that ended up in the film. Because I think the story is that the first time he did it, they had to reshoot it because Rob Zombie started laughing because he didn't know he was going to do it.
I didn't know that. But I agree with you that what makes it memorable is the fact that and Karen Black I feel Karen Black is probably one of the more well known in that movie.
Yeah.
And she was probably still working. He resurrected Sid Haig and Bill Moseley.
Yeah.
Those two guys, yes, they had done things, but Sid Haig was retired, working in an apartment building as a maintenance guy.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, he had done one movie to my knowledge, and he is in a short scene when Pam Grier is in court in Jackie Brown. Yeah. He's the judge.
Yeah.
Now, he's in a couple of other Tarantino films, but that's what he is. He's the judge in that. To my knowledge, that is one of the few things he'd done in a long, long time.
Yeah, it resurrected Sid Haig.
It gave Sid Haig a whole third act.
Yeah.
And probably Bill Moseley, and they both owe their third acts to Rob Zombie.
I agree.
And Rob Zombie owes them too because they
made the movie.
They made the movie, and he let them go. What's good about those two actors is that they're batshit nuts. They're both really nice folks. If you go out in cons, meet them both. Wonderful people to be around. But you turn them loose and they're batshit nuts. Sid Haig especially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Personally. Yeah. In a good way. In a great, lovely, eccentric way.
I was saying, didn't we attend the first year of Scarefest?
He was running for president.
Sid Haig's presidential.
Sid Haig for president. Absolutely.
Yes. And what was funny about it was he was crazy, but he also made valid points.
Yeah, I remember. I loved it. It was I can remember most of it. And anyway, we probably need to get away from House of a Thousand Corpses because we got to roll on. But check it out of course, if you're watching this, you've probably seen it.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're one of our viewers, you've already seen it. But watch it again.
Let's get on to the sequel. Probably considered his best film.
That would be
Devil's Rejects.
Halloween 2. Devil's Rejects. That's right.
Devil's Rejects.
He took the characters from his movie, said, "I'm going to make a sequel," but he didn't really make a sequel.
No.
He didn't even make the same kind of movie.
Nope.
He didn't. They're the same character names.
Right.
Oh, and we probably should get a shout out to him being a huge Marx Brothers fan.
Marx Brothers. They're all named after Marx Brothers character. Again, his obsession with classic film.
He is obsessed with the Marx Brothers. But The Devil's Rejects is a totally different movie and a totally different style with the same characters.
Right.
There's a deleted scene with Dr. Satan that he took out of the movie because it just didn't fit with the movie he was making.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I mean, because I think when a lot of people saw that, they were kind of shocked because I thought they were expecting a House of a Thousand Corpses sequel, and you didn't get one. You got a completely different...
You never get one.
And it's by far his best, in my opinion. Well, there's some argument about what his best film is, but it's probably his best film.
It's probably his best film.
So far.
Which
you
one
know
do you
what I
think
love
of?
about The Devil's Rejects? It is that you watch that movie. For me, I don't know if other people feel this way. You watch the movie, and they are absolutely terrible people.
Right.
They killed Brian Posen. They do all that other stuff. I mean, they're
Jeffrey
killing
Lewis,
people.
Brian Posen, all those people.
In the most horrific manner possible.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, that scene of having to wear the guy's face and running out in front of a truck trying to get help and getting...
Right.
All of that stuff, I watched that, but still, by the time I get to that end of the film, when they're, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, but when they're looking at, there's no way they're going to make it. Or evidently there's a third part.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that at the end of the show.
But I still want them to make it. I don't know why. They're terrible people.
It's the Freddy Krueger syndrome. You know it's horrible, but there's something likable about it. What?
I would say,
but I never felt that way about Freddy.
Really?
But there's something about that scene of them sitting in the car, and if I remember it correctly, you know, Captain Spaulding's makeup is gone.
Yeah. They're beat up. They're worn out.
Back to their old selves, their quote unquote evil selves, has been washed away in this weird way, and you're like, well, maybe if they make it, maybe there's still a chance for these people to be redeemed. And the fact that it becomes, there's no questions anymore. There's no, I mean, they're not going to get a trial.
No.
They're not going to get a process.
No.
This is going to end it.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, there's something about the way that movie's made that's compelling to me, because I just sit there and be like, come on, just let them make it.
Yeah,
run, Devil's Rejects, run!
And I will say that was one of his... Now, I'll be completely upfront. It never impacted me that way. Because, you know, like I said, for the first part, you're hating these people. They're awful human beings. And then by the second act, you're starting to relate to them and then by the last part, you're like, oh my God, you know, he managed to take these awful, vile people, and in the span of, an hour and 45 minutes, you start to root for them.
I know. You do. Yeah,
and I mean, the only other instance where I could think of off the top of my head is when that happens is Natural Born Killers, but it's still not even on the same level. Because they're not even...
The problem with Natural Born Killers is everybody who else is in Natural Born Killers...
Is an awful human being.
Is also an awful human being.
But, you know, William Forsythe...
Brian Posen's not an awful human being in that.
No, he's just a gullible guy.
How about stuff like A Perfect World, Clint Eastwood?
Yeah, but I don't know that Kevin Costner's character is as evil as the Devil's Rejects.
No, I was about to say
he's not Bill Moseley standing over with Jeffrey Lewis with a gun. I'm something Satan, and I'm here to do his work.
I am the devil, and I have come to do the devil's work, which is a quote that was spray painted, I believe. Miranda, if you're listening, correct me on Twitter. But it was the Mansons.
It was the Mansons.
Well, yeah, because Rob Zombie has
a huge obsession with Charles Manson,
which we'll get in. We're getting into that, but no. I will say though, The Devil's Rejects. When I was watching the movie, it never hit me that way like it did James. I would never actually was like rooting for them. I'm like, these people are assholes.
Chad, maybe it's because I too want to cut somebody's face off occasionally, and I need to be redeemed.
And I know I'm in the minority in that, like, because a lot of people I talked to about that film, that was always a conversation piece, is that they rooted for them by the end of the movie. I was the whole time just like, they're murdering assholes.
I want them to go on because I want to watch the next movie, and there's part of me that, of course I know that it's fake. I need to rewatch it again. It's been a while since I've saw it. It's right here in my brain. James, you have the original one sheet that's signed by almost the entire cast, correct?
Yes, if Mr. Zombie would show up to somewhere I could get him to sign it, I would lovingly display that on my office wall and never get tenure, but be okay with it.
So,
You want to move on?
let's move on.
So his next movie was, or you want to talk about something he didn't make?
No, go ahead.
All right, so they brought him in Miramax or Dimension Films, which is Bob Weinstein, which you're not allowed to say anymore.
Yeah.
Him and Bill Cosby, those are two names you can't say.
Well, it's
So
Harvey
Baltimore
Weinstein,
brought
not
him
Bob
in.
Weinstein.
Hey, Bob got screwed too.
Yeah.
But Harvey took them all down. But anyway, they brought him in for a meeting to talk about some stuff and talk about maybe doing a sequel to Halloween. And he said, well, I wouldn't do a sequel. I mean, if you're going to do it, just remake it. Which is funny because he's talked about how much he hates remakes. And
Real
then
quick.
they let him go remake the movie. What'd you say?
Real quick, before he actually started working on Halloween, he did start working on and almost completed The Haunted World of El Super Beasto.
Oh, okay.
That came immediately after Devil's Rejects, at least the start of it did.
Start of it did.
Tom Papa,
Yeah.
Tom Papa, and he wrote it together.
And Tom Papa's a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
And Rob Zombie's actually directed several of his stand-up specials.
Yeah.
Yep. They wrote it together. The Devil's Rejects are in it.
Yeah.
Part of it takes place in hell.
Hell.
All of that, but he started it, and it was done except for the music and credits and stuff like that. But that's when he got called in about Halloween. So he said in an interview, he goes, "It's going to be on the back burner for just a few months. Don't worry about it. It's just going to be on the back burner. I'm going to look at doing Halloween first." 3 years later, before we saw it. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I think there was a lot to do with financing and the company that owned it and the company that paid for it and all that other stuff, right? Before they could ever get it finished.
I was going to let you finish the Halloween, and I was going to jump in and tell the rest of that story.
Right. So he remade Halloween. I love John Carpenter. He's my second favorite director. Halloween is not his best film, but it will be what is on his tombstone, just like Wes Craven will have Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy on his tombstone.
Right.
I will have pepperoni and cheese. Is that too obscure? It's too obscure. All right.
No, I got it. It just wasn't funny.
High five, James.
Oh, go choke on your wooden desk. In Alabama. So anyway.
Talk to the hand.
Back to what I was saying. He's going to have Halloween etched. And Halloween gave him a career, and I'm sure he gets sick of talking about it ad nauseum. However, Halloween gave the man a career.
Yeah.
Halloween is not his best film. However, why in the world would you remake Halloween?
Right.
Stupid. It is a classic film. I don't care what anybody else says. People say that it ripped off Black Christmas. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know that I agree with that. I think Black Christmas is a lot of fun, but Halloween is a superior made film.
Agreed.
I'm going to go ahead and say, for the record, though, Joe, right now will write a script to relaunch Halloween again.
Oh,
because that's why I would do it.
Of course, we all three would. However, I would do it for the money and for the opportunity, but it would not be my dream job. That being said, I like Rob Zombie's Halloween.
I like Rob Zombie's Halloween as well.
Even though it's the antithesis of really what Halloween's about, because for me, Halloween is Michael Myers is just evil and doesn't have any kind of modus operandi, even though Carpenter ruined that when he was writing the sequel,
right?
Halloween 2. But if you just take Halloween...
The shape.
Huh?
The shape.
The shape
doesn't have any reason.
He doesn't have any reason. It's just evil. He's the boogeyman.
Right.
He's the boogeyman.
I think that's why some people really do struggle with Rob Zombies. Is it justified him?
And that's the biggest complaint about it is he gave Mike Myers the backstory.
However,
it's a great backstory.
If you're going to remake it, he did it the right way you should.
Yeah.
He did something different.
He brought something new to the table.
And this is what I was saying.
I like Rob Zombie's Halloween.
It's my struggle of this or The Devil's Rejects as which one's my favorite Rob Zombie movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's just because you love the monkeys.
Hey.
Yeah. Right?
I don't know what he's
talking about.
Which one of the monkeys is in Halloween?
Is he in Halloween 2?
I thought he was in Halloween 1.
Oh,
I
I
think
don't
it's in
know.
both.
Either way, that it's obscure.
Wow.
And back to what I was saying.
But my point being is, I think actually that goes back to, you could almost argue it goes back to his motif. The evil is not necessarily evil. Same thing he did with Devil's Rejects. You could. I rewatched Lords of Salem a while ago, and I'm like, well, if you honestly believe that way, are they bad?
Yeah, we'll get. Yeah, I don't have.
Anyway, go ahead.
Is it a superior movie to the original? No, but it should not be shit on. And it is 10 times better than most of the sequels.
Yeah.
I was about to say, you cannot. Which is the one that ends with Loomis dying or whatever?
6.
I'm sorry. Is it 2 where he dies or the explosion, and he comes back in the next movie and he's scarred up for some scenes, and other scenes he's not?
Well, they got rid of the scarring from part 5, but in 3, you got to remember by this time Carpenter's gone, because he says we're going to do Halloween 3, and we're only going to we'll do a different which is a great idea, and we've discussed this in previous episodes. And then it's pretty bad. The worst one's 6. I don't know which one has Busta Rhymes or whoever in it.
Halloween H2O.
No, that one's bad, but it's the one after that.
Halloween Resurrection.
Oh, God.
Anyway, let's talk about Rob Zombie.
His Halloween's better than others.
I agree.
In fact, it may be the 3rd best Halloween.
Yeah.
The original 3 and then that one?
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Sorry for people who hate 3.
I don't know, and for people who hate 3... I don't understand why. No, is it stupid? Yes. Does it hold up? Some of the effects are pretty bad, but it's such an original, different way of looking at it.
Well, it added something new.
Yeah, we're getting off Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
But anyway,
so
I'd love to see Rob Zombie remake Halloween 3.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. So that being said, talk about Super Beasto.
So,
because I don't think we have a lot to add to Halloween.
No.
I was like, Joe actually touched on this. So basically, he went back to finish the Haunted World of El Super Beasto, put the music in, do all of that stuff. And during that time is when there were legal issues. The company that started to pay for it, as he said in an interview, it started off as a $500,000 production.
Yeah.
And one side started to argue that it actually had ballooned to over $10 million. And so there was this legal battle between people who had signed on to produce and had produced part of it, and then who actually owned it, and this back and forth. Do I honestly believe that film ended up costing $10 million?
No way in hell.
No.
But that was the claim. So he kind of had to wrestle it back and forth. By this point, it was 3 years old. By the time it finally came out, and Halloween it came out, and the chances of it getting a theatrical release broad were gone. Which is probably, I enjoy it. It is, I don't know if I can even say I recommend it. I watch it and I like it.
I like scenes in it.
Well, but it goes back to, and I know we'll probably move directly into Halloween 2 in a second. There's something about even the films that I don't quote unquote love by him. There's still visuals, or there's still something where I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, and I guess we should give a short plot. Haunted World of El Super Beasto. El Super Beasto is luchador. You know, is a Mexican wrestler, right?
Yes.
And yeah, and he just goes around getting into crap and being cocky and yada yada yada. That's it.
And there's Susie, which is Sherry Moon Zombie's character.
Yeah.
And I mean, literally, at one point they go to hell. They do all this stuff. None of it really makes sense.
No. It's a neat watch if you're a zombie fan and never saw it for one night. I would say that it's maybe that or Halloween 2 are the least, though, of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I will give El Super Beasto a step above Halloween 2 because it is more original, I think.
Yeah.
But even, and I know Halloween 2 is hated, but if it wasn't called Halloween 2,
well,
I'm jumping ahead.
And before we get into Halloween 2,
go ahead.
After Halloween, he was going to direct two different movies, and instead he opted for Halloween 2.
Well, I don't think he got
He
it.
didn't opt it, but he was contractually or whatever.
Well, now I'll tell you the reason he did Halloween 2 if you don't have it. But go ahead.
No, I don't. So he was going to do a remake of Chud.
Oh, yeah?
He was going to do a remake. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know the Chud.
He was going to do a remake of Cannibalistic Human.
Underground dwellers.
You
chud.
But plans for that stalled after he signed on for Halloween 2. And the big one, there's 2 Rob Zombie movies that never got made that I think people would love to see. Why did you laugh?
Sorry, it popped into my head. I'm like, could we do a low rent ripoff of Chud? And I was like, what would we call it? And all I could think about was man-eating subterranean sissy nannies. It'd be Mess.
Yeah, we could make a mess. Bonehead makes a mess.
That's literally internal monologue. James was like, somebody should be able to rip off Chud. What could we do? And
we can make a mess.
Man-eating subterranean sissy nannies.
No, but no. So the other movie that he was going to make before Halloween 2, and this is one that I think everybody had read about and was dying to see, Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Right, which was about a badass guy.
Right. The film was an adaptation of a comic book that him and Steve Niles had done. Steve Niles is a very famous comic book person. He did 30 Days of Night, so on and so forth. It's centered on a badass professional wrestler. Oh, by the way, I should just mention, a lot of my facts came from an article I found on deadcentral.com. Dreadcentral.com. Centered on a badass professional wrestler who runs afoul of a bloodthirsty gang of satanic bikers in North Dakota. It was described as zombie as incredibly violent and an homage to 70s action movies. There's several pieces of concept art out there for this movie. Highly recommend you look them up. They look fantastic. And a lot of them are Tyrannosaurus Rex is obviously Rob Zombie on a very muscular level. But the whole thing dropped off the face of the earth when instead he did Halloween 2.
Well, he could never get it funded. So he could never get it funded. He could never get a green line. Supposedly he signed a 3-picture deal with Miramax when he did Halloween.
Oh, okay.
I read later on that the reason he did Halloween 2 was to get out of that deal. But actually what he said is that he left it like, no, because he kills Michael Myers and she shoots him in the head with a pistol.
It's over.
It's over. So they were going to do Halloween 2. They were going to do Halloween 2, and he's like, "No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it." And then
he really didn't want to do remakes anymore. He
didn't want to do sequels.
He didn't want to do a remake before Halloween, and he opted to do Halloween, which that was another backlash he got because he said he would never do a remake, and then he did a remake of Halloween.
Right. So he finally he was talking to one of the execs one day, and he goes, "Well, I don't know. I had an idea." Basically, they gave him $15 million, which was a lot less than what they paid for Halloween.
Right.
And said, "Go to Atlanta and do whatever you want." Who's going to turn it down?
Right.
I say, who wouldn't take that right now?
I mean, they didn't pay him 15. I'm just saying they gave him a budget.
They gave him a budget.
But he got to do, instead of having to argue, go do what you want.
Right.
So he could go Rob Zombie the hell out of it.
And he did.
And what happens is Halloween 2 has some great scenes in it, but it is a bleeding mess. And then he turned Michael Myers into Rob Zombie.
Right.
And God, by this time he should have just stopped. I know. I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, I don't want to criticize Rob Zombie because this is because we are a fan of Rob Zombie.
And he did do something interesting with it. He talked about how Laurie Strode must be screwed up.
Right.
And if her brother's this close to it, how close is she?
Right.
Genetically.
Right.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's the slasher part of the movie that gets in the way of the actual story.
Right.
The psychological side of it, and that's what I was saying earlier.
Yeah, that's fascinating. He nailed that.
The biggest mistake is it's called Halloween 2. If he would have done original characters and told that same story, people would have went, "Oh, yeah, cool."
And I think the slasher part gets in the way of it. Oh, we've got to stop here for someone to get murdered in a van during a concert.
Right.
Looks like a Rob Zombie concert. Which is a Halloween band, which is really cool. That's my criticism of it, is that A, he made him into Rob Zombie, and B, probably the slasher part of it and the Sam Loomis part of it probably gets in the way of it too. Yeah. I don't even know if he needed him in there.
No.
Yeah. I love Malcolm McDowell.
I do too.
But and that's another reason. I think you could have had Malcolm McDowell in the movie, but linking it back to Halloween, making him. If that movie would have been called, I don't know, Quest for Fire. I don't know. I got nothing.
You want to talk about the other? We're running a little low. We're running a little long. Do you want to go ahead and talk about the other movie that he really should have made?
The Blob?
Well, no, that's one. But I thought you were going to talk about the.
Well, I didn't want to get to that one until we got towards the end.
Okay.
Because he.
You can talk about the
Are
Blob.
we going to talk about the one movie the one short that he did linked to Tarantino and Rodriguez?
I have it down here.
There we go.
With the greatest actor of our time, Sir Nicolas Cage.
I thought he was going to say Udo Kier.
That would be the third.
What was that?
What was that, James?
That would be Werewolf Women of the SS.
That's right. It's one. That and Don't are my two favorite trailers.
Hold on, just 1 second.
Oh, where'd James go?
I have no idea. Just disappeared.
Who cares?
Like a really tubby Houdini.
I think Houdini was kind of tubby, wasn't he?
Yeah, he
Short
kind
and
of was.
stouty.
Also, he didn't really
Stouty?
disappear. He was an escape artist. He wasn't really a magician per se.
How can you be an artist at escaping?
I don't know.
Anyway, we're talking about Werewolf
Why am I
Women of the
having dreams?
SS.
I'm having flashbacks. Anyway.
We should totally go out, and if you haven't seen it, watch the trailer for Werewolf Women of the SS. Actually, if you want to, go out and buy the special edition Blu-ray for Grindhouse. Not the movies, not Death Proof Split Up.
Are you hitchhiking, James Thomas?
What do you want?
Well, you left out. It has Nicolas Cage as Fu Manchu,
Yes.
who was also played by
Christopher Lee. Fu Manchu, for you folk out there that don't know nothing about the art history. Let's roll with it.
Fu Manchu.
Was never
had a
played.
castle. He had a lot
Was
going
never played by an actual Asian.
on. No.
I'm sure maybe somewhere he was. But almost in all British and American films, he was always played by a white dude.
And usually, I mean, outside of Nicolas Cage, British.
A
at
British
that.
white dude. Did you know that?
Yeah, I knew that.
And
Are you just still freaked out or something?
anyway, the
One more to drink.
Are you upset?
Are you drinking it in?
I
Are
don't
you
want
drinking
to.
it
I'm just
in?
drinking it in.
You're gonna drink it in
I'm not
while
drinking
he's
that sewer water that
Are
he
you
has in his hand.
pointing
Are
at his
you
penis?
upset because I broke out of Joe's
Chad?
Chad?
Out of Chad, he broke out of Chad. It was like a bad relationship. He was trying to forget you.
I got.
You
I
Ricky-
wish
Why
I could
can't I
quit you.
quit you?
We're getting on Ricky Lake tomorrow to discuss this.
Speaking of
Is that
Ricky
still a
Lake, let's
show?
all get on
No,
her.
it's not.
Okay.
Check out Grindhouse. Has both of the movies,
Yeah.
and it has the cool trailers, and you should watch it from beginning to end. It's going to be about 3 hours, but it was amazing in the theater. I don't care
And
what
you're not
Chad
doing
says.
anything anyway.
Right, except
Watch
sitting at home baiting. You're for fishing.
Yeah.
Right. So before we go on with the rest of the Rob Zombie, there's two movies that we need to talk about.
I love the fact that we're not even acknowledging anything. Keep
No,
going.
no. Why would we? And
I
then,
don't
by the way, the podcast listeners are only going to go, wow, James sounds really in the room now.
Yeah, James
I
sounded
don't
like shit
often.
before on the Skype, but now
I
it
don't
sounds
often
amazing.
get acknowledged.
Oh my God, that Rode mic.
Who's talking? Anyway, so
Bruce Willis.
Look who's talking.
no, but two movies that we would have seen if Halloween and Halloween 2 had not been such a nightmare. Maybe. Rob Zombie was tied to remaking The Blob.
In which case, he actually said on record, am I right?
Yeah.
He did not want to, he wanted to do the Blob without any kind of pink gelatinous whatever.
Right. He wanted to center on the original creature from outer space, rather than the gelatinous mass of goo. Which I'm sorry, I might not know that much about the Blob,
But it's pretty much a good.
it's just goo.
The remake, though, actually is a superior film
Oh yes.
than the
Barnett.
original. I mean, Stephen McQueen, and it was cool. And the guy who produced that is an interesting character too, and that's a whole other podcast. That's a whole other show. But the remake is written by Frank Darabont,
Right.
and directed by Chuck Russell, the same team that gave us Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Right.
Right before that, and it's better, and it's not from space, right? It's government made.
Think so. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So anyway,
Government.
after Halloween 2,
They made that in the cheese.
after the Nightmare of Halloween 2, he swore he went back to his original stance of never doing a remake. Which
Yeah.
brings us to his next film.
I don't know. He
That would
directed
be-
more movies.
That would be 31.
No, Lords of Salem.
Lords of Salem.
Salem.
Schmuck.
Schmuck.
I like Lords of Salem.
I'm sorry, I don't have a piece of paper. I know
Yes,
you
you
do.
do.
But it doesn't have
Right
those.
there.
It doesn't
Why
have
would
those.
you put those notes on there though? If you're
That's
making your own
paper.
notes,
That's
you can burn that shit.
yeah.
Get back in the computer. Sit on Haley's computer.
I thought you were going to say something else. Sit on Haley and tell me that you love me.
Oh.
Sit on Haley and there's too many syllables in Haley. Sorry.
Just move on.
You don't even know
Pythons.
what I'm talking about.
Pythons, you are not, but these are.
God, I wish I was a python.
Yeah, look at that.
You know, like a younger one.
not like
The
Graham.
dead one. Graham's dead. Graham's dead, baby. Graham's dead. Anyway,
Graham, what a
Lords of
cracker.
Salem takes place in
Salem.
Jamaica.
Yum. It's Cool Runnings Part 2.
Too. It really
Oh my God, I would watch Rob Zombie's
Cool Runnings
Runnings
Part 2.
John Candy's back as a zombie. No,
So you two really like
I
Lords of
do.
Salem.
I do, because to me it is a combination. It's a low budget, but I love the way he shot it. It doesn't look like a lot of his other films.
Right.
It's a cross between a Ken Russell and a Stanley Kubrick low budget shitty horror film.
Right.
And if you guys don't know who Ken Russell is The Witches, Lair of the White Worm. He's a famous British filmmaker from the 70s and 80s, a cult hero. Del Toro, look up a story if you're a fan of Guillermo del Toro. Told a great story about meeting him and him telling him to go fuck himself.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but you know, I think I like it because it is different. It is original, but still a throwback.
It's an original. It's
mean-
not an original concept. It's a pretty cliche concept.
Yeah.
But it's done in such a way, yeah. Because there are. You could even look at Rock and Roll with Ozzy Osbourne about demon music and blah 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 and
Demons.
all that. But I think the idea of the inevitability of it and the way that it's played and
it's slow.
And what is the plot of Lords of Salem?
They're really okay. So
it's all about she gets a tape.
she's a DJ
Yes.
and works
She
at a
is.
radio station because that's what DJs do, or
Mm-hmm.
at least that's what they used to do. And they get a record
Mm-hmm.
and
From
they
the Lords of
from
Salem.
the Lords of Salem, and they play it, and she starts to see visions,
Mhm.
and she's basically her mind's being taken over by these witches,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the plot,
That's the plot.
right? Did I
And it's
miss
a lot
anything?
of and then there's a
But
lot
there's
of
a
trippy
lot
imagery.
of the trippy imagery. I
Yeah.
think because I think that's what, and it goes back to what we've already said. Rob Zombie brings something to the table. I mean, his imagery is just. There's scenes I remember from that film, and I can't quote that film. I haven't seen it as much as I have seen.
No,
some
I
of his other
can't
films.
either.
But I remember the scenes of her with the bodies and blah 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 and all that stuff. I mean, those.
It's great. It's great. It's cool. It's got a cool performance from Meg Foster. I have a good decent Meg Foster story. She's a delight to meet in person.
Yeah.
An interesting character,
Yes.
but she's great in that movie.
Yeah. Well,
Actually, you know what? I'm not a big Sherry Moon zombie fan. He puts her in everything. That's actually probably her best performance.
Agreed. Well, but next to Halloween, she's really good.
Oh, you know, she's not bad as Michael Myers' mother. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
But you know, I think the other side of that though is, you know, as we talk about these movies, it goes back and mentioning Meg Foster doing so well in that role. It goes back to what
Did
we
you say
talked
Mick
about.
Foster?
Mick Foster,
Straight
son
Mick
of
Foster from Australia.
Australia by way of Scotland.
Australia for crazy bitch acting.
What I was going to say though is
the
it goes
funniest
back
thing
to
I've said in
the,
2
the
days.
conversation about faces.
He said 2 days.
2
Yeah.
days.
2 decades.
Uh,
Oh, snap!
Oh, at least you thought it was funny.
Yeah. No, wait. No.
Ah!
Anyway.
I'm having a live too.
But I think it's the fact that again it goes back to faces, and Rob Zombie puts people that
Oh,
have.
look, it's a cherry one.
I hate your ass. A lack thereof.
How you feel
For
about
you
the
people
rest
not
of it?
watching, I opened a pack of Lifesavers, and Chad was going through it earlier, trying to find the cherry. Of course, Chad has never really found a cherry.
Anyway, goes back to faces. Meg Foster at this point in her career
That's a good
definitely has a face. Has definitely got.
No, and
I
she
mean-
has those wonderful eyes, and she's done so many great roles, and she's
They Live. Blind Fury.
Stepfather 2,
Blind Fury.
Masters of the Universe.
Oh, yeah. Ooh.
She's good as Evil Lynn.
Yeah, she is.
I mean, as good as
you
that
know,
movie
by the
could
way-
allow.
By the way, when you name your child Evil Lynn, I think you're setting her up. I think you're setting her up for failure.
It wasn't until later that I realized, oh, that's kind of a play on Evelyn.
Yeah,
It didn't even occur to me.
Really?
Now, why would it? I'm not very bright.
Anyway, so let's get back on Rob Zombie.
Faces. And Meg Foster, I mean, there's a lot of that movie that they don't go for sex appeal in that movie. They don't go.
Absolutely not, no.
I mean, there is some scenes of it that are just dark, twisted little scenes.
If you enjoy slow, and not in a bad way,
No.
but plotting, brooding, atmospheric films, and you should totally check out Lords of Salem. I recommend it if you're a horror fan or if you're a Rob Zombie fan.
We saw it in theaters, correct?
You and I were the only two who saw it in theaters in the United States, sir. I'm pretty sure it was just you and I in that theater.
Well, we saw it in a theater that no longer is open.
That is it.
Movie
Did we?
10. Movie 10, yeah.
I missed some movies too.
And we saw it there, and but I can remember you were right. There may have been one other person in the theater.
There may be.
And it is very slow, but it builds up and it gets to you. And I think it got to me more like when it was over. I was like, oh, well, it's kind of a Corman-esque, Russell-esque kind of
Ken
film.
Russell, Stanley Kubrick had a baby who made a low budget, cliche horror film
with great visuals,
with an original
cast.
Vision.
Yeah.
And
great cast.
Because he has original vision, man. He has a point of view.
But anyway, and I went home and the more I thought about scenes from it, the more they played on me.
Yeah, so I agree. I enjoy it. And in fact, thinking about it right now, I'd like to watch it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, before we get into his final actually released movie, let's talk about the final two projects that I could find that he was tied to that didn't happen. The first one's actually a TV series. He was tied to do the Manson Family TV series because as we mentioned, I believe earlier on this episode that we have recorded all in one day and one night.
Nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed at all.
Nothing at all. Anybody want a lifesaver?
Everything is as it was.
These shorts were always gray.
Everything is as it was.
Burt Reynolds is still healthy.
Healthy and going to do the new Tarantino movie.
Yep.
Hold on, let me make another And Gary Busey doesn't have polio.
No.
If he gets polio in the next week, I'm Nostradamus.
So anyway,
it's pronounced dumb.
So I believe as we mentioned,
Nostradamus.
I believe as we mentioned earlier in this episode.
You all right, Haley?
Rob Zombie is is fascinated with the Manson family murders. Him and American Psycho.
That's what he said.
Him and American Psycho.
Did you kiss his armpit?
He really did. I heard him.
No.
Did you kissed his armpit? Did you miss him that much?
It was a sniffle.
And you guys are leaning into one another. And by that, James is leaning into you.
I'm sorry, you got to see him before he left. He never even said bye to me. He just moved on.
Well, he's back.
He's back.
Guess who's back?
From outer space.
Back again. You just walked in like something sad look upon
I'm
your
sticking
face.
with sad on Haley and tell me that you love me.
These musical interludes were brought to you by Satan. Satan, for all your punishment needs.
From Satan. Check out Lords of Salem.
We're the bastards of Tums. I don't know.
Wouldn't Tums be the bastards of Rolaids?
I don't know. Why don't we do a whole episode on antacids?
I could do one on acids.
Anyway, so Rob Zombie
on acid.
Ooh, Prilosec.
So Rob Zombie
supporting
Bonehead. I'm never gonna get this through. So Rob Zombie teamed with American
those fat
Psycho.
guys really look like they have acid reflux.
Only if I eat sugar.
Well, you better
Chad,
stay
will you
away
get to
from
the
Chad.
point?
Oh my God! So Rob Zombie teamed with American Psycho writer Bret Easton Ellis, and they were working on a miniseries for Fox about Manson and his followers. The idea was to tell converging stories of people and events leading up to and after the infamous 1969 murders, told from shifting point of views. The project went dead though, and this was from Ellis. Again, this all came from Dread Central. The online buzz about the project inspired NBC to jump ahead of them and make the show Aquarius.
Oh, I never watched Aquarius.
Neither did I, but it apparently killed this project. And the final one, which I believe all three of us were hoping that he would make, Broad Street Bullies.
Oh, yeah.
This was, and Rob Zombie had talked about this for years, if I'm not mistaken. He wanted to make this hockey movie. He worked on this movie for a grand total of 2 years. It was going to be about the Philadelphia Flyers hockey team from the 70s, and they were famous for beating the Soviet Union's who were big at the time. Also, they were notorious for their violent tactics on the ice. plans were dropped when he received funding for the movie
31,
which we're going to talk about now.
So
Because the one thing Rob Zombie has continued to have troubles with is breaking out of the genre that has defined him.
And what's funny is we're going to talk about 31. We'll get to 3 from Hell after that, so
Yeah.
I won't mention the story behind that. But 31, when I heard the plot, not only did he get funding, but he also did crowdsourcing.
Yep.
Which largely went to finish it, correct? It was
Post.
a post stuff.
He said his problem is with low budget filmmaking is that you run out of money during post, and then that you don't get to stay in the editing room as long as you'd like to.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was scenes that he shot with Sid Haig and Michael Berryman for Lords of Salem that he just couldn't figure out how to fit in, and if he'd had more time in post, he would have been able to probably fit those in. He ended up cutting them out of the movie because it just didn't fit for what he was trying to get done. So 31 takes place on Halloween night in the 70s, where, and correct me, jump in at any time, where people are kidnapped and thrown into this game where they have to fight for their lives.
One thing we haven't discussed is
It's kind of like
while a lot of Rob Zombie's movies take place in the 70s.
He loves the 70s.
And also, too, because it fits into the plot line of his story where you cannot just get on a cell phone and call somebody for help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It knocks out that plot hole altogether.
Yeah, and you can't, and I think that's something that I really do struggle with modern horror films, with the exception of things like The Ring, because The Ring, you're just dead.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You call whoever you want, you're dead. But I think that's the problem if you're talking about slashers and it's not supernatural. I mean, even 30 Days of Night had to do that, which felt like a throwaway.
It's a throwaway line, and that's the problem that the comic book did better than the. And there's some great scenes in 30 Days of Night. That should be another.
Film.
That should be included in another show of us doing flawed films.
Yeah.
But in the movie,
Because
it's somehow all the phones got round up and burned.
Yeah, who could do that?
Yeah.
I don't give a shit if the town is 100 people. Good luck finding everybody's cell phone, taking it away from them, and getting it away. Right.
I lose mine half the time. I don't even know where my own is, let alone if you're a ghoulie. I just want to say ghoulie.
Ghoulie.
Ghoulie the hand.
I thought you were going to ghoulie, said no holler, ghoulie,
No.
trying to make it holler.
No, I didn't.
Oh my God, Andy Griffith taught me everything I need to know about Mississippi.
Anyway.
Yes. What were we saying?
So 31.
31.
And they basically bring out a collection of freaks.
Who kill.
And so
this is a low-budget horror movie version of The Running Man.
Kind of, sort of.
Or I mean, kind of the same way if you survive, you're free to go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's the same thing as Battle Royale, Hunger Games, whatever you want to say.
Right.
Yeah.
You survive, you win.
Once again, not the world's most original idea.
No, but the way he plays it and the fact that they unleash certain people at certain times.
Uh-huh.
I mean, E.G. Daly's in it as
Tommy
E.G.
Pickles.
Daly.
and you know so there's they're all thematic. It's almost like in that way Death Race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, all these thematic type characters, and they come out and they
Kill you.
I enjoyed 31.
Well, 31, for you all out there, the Boneheads for years have done a Halloween party that's evolved. And basically, we pick several different movies. We used to try to pick the worst crappy things, and then after we pretty much tortured ourselves for years. Now we just try to find some things that are about accurate.
Well,
I like to find one bad horror film.
We try not to go mainstream though. Like
we do. We're looking
everybody...
for something obscure, and we're looking for things that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
So 31 played our movie fest last year, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
It was last year, or was it year before?
It was last year.
Yeah.
Last year.
We enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it a lot.
I had nothing to say bad about it.
No.
I mean, it was.
Richard Brake makes the movie.
Yes.
As Doomhead.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, the opening scene with Richard Brake.
That is his name. Correct? Richard Brake? I think so. He's
yes.
yeah.
Thank you, Haley.
Right?
It is.
Yeah, he's a great character.
No, yeah, he's a great character. And that opening scene of him in black and white is fantastic. It automatically zaps you into that movie.
And you know what I also love about the film, and it doesn't really make a ton of sense.
And that's one thing. Well, real quick, and that's one thing Rob Zombie is really good at that he doesn't get credit for. Monologues.
Monologues and Did we talk about casting?
Yeah, casting.
Yeah, monologues and casting.
But I love the fact. One thing I love about 31, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but I just love the scenes, is the aristocracy type angle of it with Malcolm McDowell as the host.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense,
No.
but it's just you're sitting there going, "Yeah, no, I'm along for the ride."
Well, it kind of does explain why they're playing 31 in the first place, but who are these folks? Why are they betting gold? I mean,
Yeah,
there's no
but it
explanation.
doesn't really matter. You're, for lack of a better term, buy the ticket, take the ride.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
popcorn movie.
It is, and it was enjoyable.
Yeah.
It was better than I thought it would be.
It really was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and then, of course, we'll briefly talk about 3 from Hell.
So 3 from Hell is going to be the sequel, the third in the
trilogy.
franchise, of the trilogy of
If he's going to do a 4th one.
of the Devil's Rejects and House of a Thousand Corpses. Now, we talked about the Devil's Rejects and how they're all dead, and if you're ever at a con and you ask Sid Haig or Bill Moseley and they're sitting next to one another why there wasn't a third one, they will both stop each other, and I've watched them do it. Have you ever seen this?
Nope.
Yeah.
I have. It's kind of cool because we're fucking died.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not. But that's what
That's
they
a
do.
quote.
They do it in quote. Yeah.
It's the same response they both have if people ask them why Karen Black didn't come back as Mother Firefly in The Devil's Rejects, and they both have the exact same response. I've seen them. I moderated a panel with them, and they literally both go 1, 2, 3, the money. And it's awesome because it's Sid Haig doing it. And,
Yeah.
But anyway, but yeah, I mean I want to see how he does it though.
I do, and it's a low budget film.
Yes, very low budget.
Very
Is
low
it going to
budget.
get theatrical?
I don't know.
I hope it does.
And here's the
but
thing.
I want to go see it in the
I
theater.
read an interview with him, and he was talking about breaking out of the horror thing. He said, and people asked him why he didn't do another one. He actually said later he had an idea, and they wouldn't pay for it. Lionsgate was not beating down his door to have another third of those films.
Right.
Yeah. But, I love... actually, I like House of a Thousand Corpses. I love. That's why I've got the poster signed by everybody. Devil's Rejects.
Also, you got Rob Zombie to sign it? Did you get Cheryl Moon Zombie to sign it too?
Cheryl Moon
that's
Zombie
amazing.
Cheryl Moon?
Is Sherry Moon's
Sherry
sister.
Moon Zombie, sorry.
Cheryl Moon Zombie was on
Hey,
Twin Peaks.
Did you get that cast from Who Framed Roger Rabbit to sign your poster?
Yeah, once you
You
get
know-
Bob Hoskins is
you
where
know,
you really
some
ought
things-
to...
Bob Hoskins going.
Some things are just
Bob
hurtful.
Hoskins going. Yeah, how's that going?
That's just hurtful.
Uh-huh. Well,
Yeah.
I still have a shot. What's your shot looking like?
Continue.
Anyway,
Anyway, I'm really looking forward to 3 from Hell.
yeah.
Did you get that big, tall, giant guy to sign it?
He's dead.
Your mother?
Oh!
I miss you so much.
Oh, God.
And on that note,
Speaking of 3 from Hell, we're in hell. Bye.
I'm glad James was able to come out of the video screen like Samara and kill us all.
Yeah.
By the way, 7 days.
I guess one final note is, let's keep hoping Rob Zombie makes films.
I agree, and
Yeah.
I want him to do something other than horror. Too.
I want him to break out of the genre.
I want him to do a mystery.
So what you need to do is log on
You
to
just
the,
killed the
to the
mood with your
iTunes.
conversation.
Who killed that rat vendor?
to the SoundCloud and to the YouTubes and subscribe and rate us, please. Thank you, and share us on all your social medias, whether that be the Twitter, whether that be the Facebook, whether
The
that be the
Instagram,
Instagrams,
The
whether that,
MySpaces.
the Grinders, the Ginders, the Swipe Right,
would be
Snapchat the hell
Tinder.
out of us, and Tinder. Well, that's what you build a fire out of, because it's getting hot in here.
And, of course...
It'll be
your-
another 2 decades. I hope you enjoyed that one joke.
And, of course, your face spaces and your My Books and your whatever you got.
He's just gonna keep going.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Next week's show, Pumpkin Spice.
Ooh.
The Forgotten Spice Girl.
I tell you what I want. What I really, really want.
What do you want?
I'd
What do you
rather you
really,
not.
really want?
I want a hut. I want a hut. I want a zig.
Oh my God, he's having a stroke.
Call an ambulance, Haley. We're out of here.
It is hot in here. I got the vapors.
Well, that's because you're wearing 14 fucking shirts.
And I ate that bean burrito.
Wondered why my leg was getting warm.
Don't do
it
your
takes a-
Andy Rooney bullshit.
Right.
I like Rob Zombie.
You don't have the eyebrows.
Whenever you're ready.
Have you
trimmed
been
them this
waxing?
morning. I trimmed them. I've got to be, you know, I'm going for tenure.
Oh Jesus!
You just got there.
Yeah,
Did you
you have to
bikini
turn in a
wax too?
portfolio your third year, which
every
means
once
the
in a while
first
you
2
got to
years.
take a bush hog to those ears.